Okay, so let's continue with soul abundance. And so far, I've gotten some great feedback that has come back, and feedback as we're teaching. Both Sharika and I are teaching. It's wonderful to get the feedback of what you are getting from this. Like what you're learning. It's great for us as teachers, because then we also know that we're getting across the message that's in our heart, that we've studied, that God's put in our heart, and that we are effectively communicating. And I think that's one great thing about feedback. And the second one is, as you feedback, as you say what you're learning, it's like it pushes or solidifies the learning even more. And a third thing is, as you share it with other people, then like something that stood out to you may not have been so highlighted to somebody else, but yet when they hear you talk about it and they hear about your revelation, then it's like they can get the revelation also. So yeah, Meredith, it's good to turn off the note. I just don't know how quickly, Isa, to turn off the notifications. So I'm going to leave it for right now, and for tomorrow we'll figure it out, because I just don't know. I don't know how to do it. I will try one thing. I'll try turning off my sound on my laptop. Maybe that'll help. Hopefully. Okay. Like I said, excuse my discombobulated stuff here, but I have good teaching for you. So like I was saying, the third thing is when we share what we've learned or what stood out to us, then other people can glean from that as well. So that's why we also have you do your team times, you discuss it, because it also implements inside. And I'm getting all the messages coming through as I'm trying to teach. All right, hang on a sec. Let me try. Pastor Isa would like me to turn it off on my phone. The problem is, I don't know how when I'm on live. I do it tomorrow, okay? I'll do it for tomorrow. So, okay, I want to focus on the teaching. So that's the reason why we love the feedback. Anyways, and so I think it was Juvie was giving me some feedback from some of the different people, and then also I've seen some of the online feedback, and that this is, this teaching is really ministering to you. And I honestly believe, with all sincerity in my heart, that understanding our being, and especially understanding our thoughts and our emotions and how God has created us and who we truly are and who we truly aren't, but yet is still part of our system, will help us just go like strides forward, like run forward in the victory, in the freedom that God's given us. And fortunately, this life is a journey, right? Like we get to, and I think it's wonderful to embrace life and just say, you know what? We're not expecting it to be all a bed of roses, we say, or we're not expecting it all just to be wonderful. We go into life knowing there's going to be the highs and the lows. There's going to be the challenges, the successes. There's going to be the pain. There's going to be the love. It's going to be everything. But if we can set our minds like that, saying, I'm just going to embrace it all, and I'm going to fully experience my life as it comes to me. And in that process, I'm going to take whatever comes into my life, and I'm going to continue to grow. I love that. I really love that. And I'm renewing my mind to that as well. And, if we don't compare ourselves to other people's lives, like the life that they have, that's what they have. We can learn from others for sure. But we shouldn't, there should be no comparison. We just have our life and what has come to us, what God has uniquely given to us. And if we set our minds to say, I'm just going to embrace it, I'm not going to resist any of it, but I'm actually going to embrace it all. And from all of it, I'm going to grow, and I'm going to become and manifest and flow in what God's placed on the inside of me, the freedom that He's paid for, the unique personality, giftings that I have, and it's a wonderful way just to embrace life, to live fully in the moment right now, right? Like fully say, I'm going to just, we're in the middle of the coronavirus, we're quarantined, but what can I embrace? How can I just fully live my life right now, even in the midst of external limitation? There's a great place of actually living right now. So I just want to encourage you in that. So, okay, our series is Soul Abundance, right? And 3 John 2, Beloved, I wish above all things that you prosper, and you prosper in all things, and you are in health, even as your soul prospers. So as we've started each session, we're saying that abundance starts on the inside. It's abundant thinking, abundance of how we are looking at life, how we, when a circumstance is presented to us and things that are out of our control are presented to us, how do we respond? How do we react? How do we also take awareness of ourselves and then grow from these situations? Like grow, become stronger, become more in tune with what's happening. Like, let's look at it as exciting. Like, we have this opportunity. And so that's where abundance starts. Abundance starts inside. And the Bible very, 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 very clearly says that out of the beliefs, out of what's inside of us, that is the fruit in our lives. So our reality is being produced, what's around us, by the beliefs inside of us. Wow. So a lot of reason for us to really focus on abundance of the soul, abundance in the heart, abundance internally, because that will manifest into more external abundance, of course. Okay. So in our last session, we really discussed the principle that our circumstances don't cause our feelings. And that's something we really have to take note of and remind ourselves, because we don't really grow up being taught that, do we? We grow up just feeling like this happens and therefore I feel like this, right? So we link it together. And the link is that my circumstance or what's happening around me, my world around me, directly causes me to feel. And as we discussed, and hopefully was very clear in the last session, is that the circumstances, the world around us, events around us, people around us, what they do, what they don't do, doesn't directly cause me to feel. Now, I'm not saying we don't have a feeling because of what somebody does or on a circumstance, but we have to just take responsibility that our feelings originate on the inside of us. They originate in here. And we looked even deeper that one of the big causes of our feelings is our thoughts. So thoughts produce feelings. There will be a whole session on that, and we will break that down even more. But we're just going to take ownership that my feelings originate on the inside of me. Why? Why is this so important? It's because if I assign responsibility to the circumstance for the way I feel, I am powerless to ever change. Right? Or I have to change the circumstance so that I can feel different. There's times to change circumstances, but if our go-to is always to change the circumstance around us, to change our feeling, we're missing a lot of growth opportunities. Okay? So my feelings originate on the inside of me, and those come from the thoughts and the beliefs that I have. So that's what we discussed last time. So today's topic, and most likely it'll be several topics, we're going to discuss feelings. We're going to discuss emotions. Understanding ourselves, understanding feelings and emotions that we all have, we all should have. It's actually a gift. All feelings, no matter what we would title good or bad, highs or lows, like pain or fear or even love and joy, all those are emotions and feelings. So let's look at them at all as a gift. They're all a gift to us. God created our being to have emotion. Just imagine life without emotion right now. Imagine that you had no feeling. Zero. That means you don't feel love. You don't feel joy. You don't feel peace. You wouldn't feel pain. You wouldn't feel disappointment. You wouldn't feel sadness or grief. It was just blank. That's a pretty boring life, to not have any emotion, no feeling. And it's just not the way we're designed. God created us as emotional beings. And when we look at it like that and we say, wow, this is a gift, then we can do a lot more with it. Yet again, I don't feel like we have a lot of teaching around emotion and feeling. In fact, like the way I grew up in the Christian world, and maybe the way the world overall has, not the world, but even in the Christian world, the most that I always understood about feelings is just don't follow your feelings, follow your spirit. Don't just go with your emotion. You got to follow your spirit, which is the truth, right? So I got to follow my spirit, but what do I do with all the emotion that's going on? So I remember somebody I used to learn from, he said, if I could just listen to my spirit, but cut off my head, I'd be fine. Well, we can't just cut off our head and our emotions. We can't just ignore. That is actually that's what we actually do. We ignore, we squeeze, we resist, we avoid, because we don't know, especially we don't really know what to do with all the negative emotions. But I want to just liberate us today to say, let's feel it all. Let's accept it all. Let's embrace it all. And as we do, then we're going to learn how to also like process through it, how to journey through it, how to grow from it, which is so much better. Okay. So we're going to look at emotions as a gift to us. Number one, emotions help us experience life. It's like the experience of life. We only have one life to live, right? We don't believe in reincarnation and all that. You don't get another chance. You just get one human life. And after that, into eternity, whether it's eternal life or eternal death. That's a whole nother scenario. But this life here is only one. Only one. You only get one. And we also don't actually know how long it'll be. I mean, we hope to live, long years, and the Bible promises that. But the truth is, too, we also just have no idea. We don't know. So let's live every day and experience and embrace and just live life. So emotion helps us in that capacity. It's not the only part it's not. Anna Lou says, I love feelings and I'm a feeler. I feel you. Good. Thank you, Anna Lou. Because we want to have it, but we also want to know what we should do with our feelings. Okay. So number one, emotion gives experience to life. Okay. It gives us experience. Number two, it's in the contrast of emotion that we actually appreciate the positive a lot more. Just imagine this. You are happy just all the time. Happy all the time. You would have no realization of what true happiness is if you never felt sadness. And by the way, a lot of times we think, the goal in life is just to be happy. Actually, no. Do you want to be happy when somebody dies? Do you want to be happy when, negative circumstances are happening? No, there's appropriate emotions that go along with a situation that is happening. So our goal here is not just to live happy all the time. We want to experience happiness, but it's not our goal. That's not the epitome. The epitome is to experience everything and then know how to process it. That should be our goal. That should be our goal. Okay, I can experience anything. And then with God on the inside of me, I can process through this and I can always come out better and grow further. Number three, why are understanding feelings and emotions so important? Because our feelings and our emotions actually drive our action. Or actually our inaction. Okay. So if I feel, yesterday I had this, I was looking at my own feelings and, I had taught in the morning and I came back and then I was doing a prayer coaching session with somebody and it got to be later in the evening and I still hadn't done my workout. And I had two very equal emotions on the inside of me. One emotion was motivation to do. And the other emotion was feeling was lazy. That's the last thing I want to do. It's but I could feel both emotions equally on the inside. And if I would have gone with the feeling of lazy, forget it, the thoughts behind that were just do it tomorrow. You've already, you don't have much energy right now. Then if I would have gone with that feeling, that would have led to inaction. It's interesting. So let me finish that. But thankfully I was able to assess myself and say, that's not what I really want. And so I was able to tap into my motivation, and my motivation feeling came from the goals that I've set, for my workouts. And thankfully I tapped into the feeling of motivation, and from that motivation, even though lazy, or maybe it wasn't lazy, but just didn't want to do it, was also there. But instead I tapped into motivation and I did my workout. And then afterwards, of course, I was so thankful to myself that I did that. So feelings are really important in our life because they will drive our actions or our inaction. It's amazing. We look at, even the emotions of overwhelm. And overwhelm's because it's probably something that a lot of people are going through right now is overwhelm. And when we feel overwhelmed, normally it's interesting, the overwhelm, what it usually leads to is inaction. But we have to remember that overwhelm is actually linked to the thoughts that we're thinking, not the circumstances around us, right? But that's another topic, right? But just all we're looking at is the feeling, or let's say it's anxiety. Many people could be feeling anxiety. And so when we feel anxiety, what's the action or the inaction that happens? When we feel motivated, what do we then do or not do? When we feel peace, what do we then do or not do? So all I'm illustrating right now is that our feelings or our emotions will then be the precursor or the drive into our action or our inaction. And that's important because then if we're doing or not doing let's say we look at our last week and we're like, wow, I've had so much inaction. What was the main feeling that was driving me? Then we can go even deeper and say, what am I thinking? Okay. And we can begin to adjust things on the inside of us so that we actually get the results and the actions that we want. And we're doing it from abundance on the inside. This is all just part of self-evaluation. And as I teach, I want to say it is okay. And especially as we talk about feelings and emotions right now, whatever you're feeling, it is okay. It is okay. Because we're focusing today on awareness first. We're going to learn later, then once we're aware, then we actually want to do something with it. We want to decide, do we want to keep this emotion? Is this helping us? Is it serving us? Or is it actually disserving us in terms of our overall, goals and ideas? And so then we can do work on that. But all I want us to do today is just get more awareness. Okay. So feelings, it's very important fact in this is that feelings and emotions drive our actions. Take notice today. Take notice in the next couple of days that depending on how you feel, then what are the actions that come from that? Maybe you feel like, one thing that we do, maybe we're feeling alone or we feel like out of control. And so some people, one thing we love to turn to is food, right? So I feel alone and I turn to food. We need to eat food, but it's like, why am I eating the food? The action is I eat the food so that I feel more comfort, right? We have a nice term for that. It's called comfort food. So I eat this food, I feel a lot better. It comforts me. Okay, I'm just giving you lots of examples of everyday life of how our feeling will then drive our action. And it's great for us to assess that and say, what action, when I did this, when I had this action or this inaction, what was the feeling that I had or the emotion that I had that then led into this action or inaction. And of course, all of our actions then will lead to results in our life. Okay, fourth thing. So the first was emotions give experience to life. The second is it's in the contrast of emotion that we're actually more appreciative of emotion. Like because there's a contrast, we can actually understand that there's highs and there's lows and all of that. Number 3 is that our feelings drive our action and our inaction. And number 4 is that God has given us our emotions and our feelings as a guidance system. Okay, I'd love for you to think about it like that. That your emotions and your feelings are a guidance system. Because it's going to help us understand what's going on at a deeper level within us. Emotions, I listened to somebody who teaches on this, and I wrote down this quote because I love it. It says, emotions are a dead giveaway to what you are believing in your heart. Emotions, whatever emotion is coming up, whatever's surfacing, then it is then a dead giveaway to the beliefs in your heart, not the thoughts in your mind. Okay, this is a big distinction, right? It's not just our intellectual mind. It's not just our logical mind. Our feelings come from the beliefs in the heart. And we've learned this over the years of doing freedom prayer with people. And when I pray with people, one of the things I say to them is when we're going through this process, I want you to tell me what is feeling true at the moment. What emotion do you have? What is coming up? Don't just give me what you know should be true, right? Like maybe we're praying and somebody feels, very separated, very unloved. Maybe they feel very rejected. And we get into it, they actually even feel separate from God. And I said, how do you feel? I want them to say if it feels true to them, I want them to say, I feel like God doesn't love me unless I do something. And they might kick into like, well, but I know that's not true. Okay, I know that you know that that's not true because it's coming from intellect and logic and theology, and great that you know what the truth is, but we are trying to get the truth into the heart, into the beliefs, because it's the beliefs that produce the feeling. So that's where something we can so easily see that We can know in our mind and we read the word and we can see in other people's lives, God loves me. And yet somehow in our heart, we feel separate or distant, or that we have to do to be loved. Okay, then we have to dig in. Why? Because there are deep beliefs in there. There is programming inside that is producing that feeling of rejection, of performance, of whatever that is. Even though you may know the truth, down here, there's still belief systems that we have to find, remove, reprogram, and have the truth go way down in there. Okay, so that's why actually emotions are important to us. We don't want to ignore our feelings. We don't want to ignore our emotions. We don't want to avoid our emotions. We don't want to just medicate our emotions. We want to use our emotions as a guidance system and like an alert to know what's going on in a deeper place in us. So even if you have a negative emotion, it's okay. You have to say to yourself, okay, I'm having this negative emotion. I'm having this feeling that's not so great. Let's use this as an opportunity to find out, what I'm really believing. What's down there in my programming that I have no idea is there. Yeah, so our emotional programming alerts us to what is happening inside of us, what we're thinking. And as we find out what that thinking is, what those belief systems are, we will be able to begin to assess whether it's coming from scarcity, it's coming from abundance, it's coming from lack, it's coming from empowerment, it's coming from limitation, it's coming from peace, it's coming from truth. Okay? There will be a session on that. How do we actually do that? But all I want us to see right now is like the emotions are just fruits of a deeper thought process. It's a deeper thought process. So don't ignore your emotions. Don't ignore your feelings. Don't just accept them either as this is the way I feel and that's it. That's what we do. Oh, I just feel this. This is how I feel. Okay, it's how you feel. We want to embrace it. But then let's find out if it's not an emotion that's serving you or helping you or serving others and you want to grow, then we can find out what's the deeper belief system that is producing that. And especially things that continue to come up in our life. And there are some feelings and some emotions that I call, that the Lord gave me the term for so many years ago. It's a glass ceiling. We have felt that for so long. We don't even register that we feel it consciously. Like we just feel it and then we go on. We're just so used to that feeling. We're so used to that prick in our heart, that jab in our tummy, our, the twist or the pinch of pain when a certain thing happens. And we're just so accustomed to it. We're just so accustomed to it that we don't even register that it happens. No, we're so used to it. I mean, in the last week, I'm using this all the time. So what I'm teaching you, I'm doing with myself. And I've seen two major areas of breakthrough where I use my emotions, finding out, okay, wow, and it took me a while to name one of the emotions. It's like just something I would feel. And it was like this, actually, I can tell you what it was. It was like an emptiness. I didn't have a name for it 2 weeks ago. It was so not on my radar because I just have felt it for so long. And then finally, doing all this and praying and saying, God, I want to grow. I finally registered this feeling and I finally was able to name it as emptiness. There's an empty. But not in everything in life. I have a lot of contentment, so many different things. It's just in this one particular area when certain things would happen, like when I would be triggered. And I would feel, and if I could describe it now, I can describe it now in 2020 sight because I'm looking back. I would say it was like a gnawing emptiness, it's like gnaw is the word. It would just, I didn't like it. But I was so used, I would just feel it at times and then it would just finally subside and I never registered it. So finally I said, wait a minute, what is that? I named it. And then I was able to look into the belief systems, the programming that's below that. And I found some interesting things, some interesting stuff that I really feel like I walked through a lot of victory because I was able to find it and take a look and be willing to find out what was going on deeper, not just, resign responsibility that somebody else wasn't meeting my need. Mm-hmm. Again, I'll have a whole session on that. Just remember, it's like the emotions are a guidance system for us. And we can say they're all just neutral. There's not good and bad, and there's not it's like whatever's happening for you is okay. It's okay. It's just then what do we do with it afterwards? And I'm going to teach you on that. How do we process these emotions? How do we use them for our benefit so that we can continue to grow? Okay, so as we understand, our being is really, we are so many layers, if we could use that word. I looked up our physical being and how many just major organ systems we have just in our body. And it, as it came up, what I saw when I just Googled it and researched it was that we have 9 major organ systems. We have our cardiovascular, we have our skeletal, we have our muscular, we have our nervous system, and more. And the point of that is just look at our physical body and how many different systems and layers are all working together so that we can have life. And if we go beyond our physical and then we go into our emotional and we go into our soul realm, way more layers. And then we look at the central and the core of who we are, which is spirit, we discussed this in our first session. I am spirit. That is who I am. I am a child of God. That is my identity there. So we can always say, what is my identity? And we can check in with who is God? What nature and characteristics, because that is our born again nature. We were born his child. We were born into his kingdom. We were born out of sin, the sin kingdom. We were born out of the evil kingdom, which is what we were originally born into. And we were born with a brand new nature. Wow. A brand new nature that's that we're on this journey of revealing more and more and getting rid of the programming and all the stuff and the things that we've absorbed over the years that are not in alignment with our actual nature, our actual spirit nature, our nature as a child of God. It's just that there's all these layers of stuff. And again, but we can look at it as an opportunity, wow, it's a journey that I get to keep on discovering. Wow, I get to discover all that God's given me. That discovery phase. He has given me so much. He's paid for it all. It's in here. It's just letting it be revealed. It's manifesting it. It's walking it out. It's actually getting rid of the, let's say the lies and the thoughts and the programming and the different things that we've taken on ourselves that are just, it's like it's in conflict. It's not in alignment with our nature. And we get the opportunity to shed those things or to up level so we can continue to reveal and walk in what he's given us. Okay. So I sent you, hopefully you saw this already, and I sent you a picture. Again, I just found it online, of the soul in I'm just opening my computer because it closed. So a picture of our conscious, our subconscious, and actually there's another one. I was listening to Dr. Carolyn Leaf and she was referring to this because when I taught you before, I said subconscious and subconscious, which is accurate, but there's also unconscious. So it's there's 3 levels of our mind. We have our conscious mind, we have our subconscious mind, and we have our unconscious mind. Okay, so our conscious mind is probably about 5 to 10% of the activity that takes place in our being in a day. As I research it more, it's between 90 to 95% that's happening in the subconscious and the unconscious mind. So, what's in the conscious mind is our rational thinking, it's our logic, it's our perception of what's going on. It's right now I'm very conscious of teaching you, so it's all in my conscious mind. What I'm aware of, even as I gave an example before, I love to move my hands. I hope it's not too distracting. And I don't move my hands consciously. It's coming from a subconscious, it's part of my communication, the way I move my hands and I move my body. I'm not actively, at the moment, I'm actively thinking about moving my hand as an example. But the whole time I'm talking to you, I have facial expressions, my body is moving. That's all coming from my subconscious, right? And so it's just important that we understand that, and that we have 60,000 to 70,000 thoughts in our programming that's happening all day long. 90% of that from our subconscious, okay? And so now what we're looking at is, and then the fruit of that is what we feel. It's our emotions that are happening. Whether it's just peaceful, or it's joy, or it's frustration, or irritation, or anxiety, overwhelm, whatever it might be, all these things, okay? So, and probably right now is a great time for us to, it's like when emotions are heightened, right? Because our world around us has changed. So therefore, we don't have the normal, we don't have the normal like things that we can go to that would soothe our emotions that we can work through. So it's like we're all like put in like this other situation. So we may find that even more emotions come up that we're not used to, or it's at a heightened place because we can't control the circumstances around us as much as we could before. Does that make sense? We're just been put in a whole nother scenario, and therefore it means that all kinds of stuff could come up for us. So, and again, it's okay. Just look at it as discovery. Just look at it as an opportunity to see what's going on deeper, okay? So, being emotionally aware is extremely important. Being emotionally aware, I would say that's the first step. Because a lot of times we're not even checking in with our emotions, okay? And so the first step in today's focus is just awareness. In tomorrow's session and succeeding sessions, we will talk about how to process emotion, okay? Because there's kind of four main categories of what happens. When an emotion comes up, we might resist, or we could react to it, we could avoid it, or we can allow it, okay? I'll say that again. We can resist, react, avoid, or allow. Those are the four main categories. So I start to feel an emotion, I start to feel irritation, let's say, and maybe I react to it. I just go with it. I explode with it. I just feel it. It just comes out like I just feel the irritation, la, 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 right? So I just react to it. And then what's interesting too is that sometimes then we have a reaction. We have this emotion, and then after that we have another emotion regarding the emotion we just felt, right? Like sometimes. We might feel something, and then all of a sudden, then we get mad at ourselves or we get angry at ourselves that we felt it. So that's like a layer upon a layer. I felt irritation, and then afterwards I'm like, oh, I'm so mad at myself that I felt that. Why do I feel that, Amy? Stop that. And then I like get myself in trouble because I don't like it. Or another one is I just indulge in the emotion. Oh, I just feel this, indulging. That's like, oh, like kind of poor me, and this is how I feel, and this is just how it is in my life, and this is what the circumstances are causing me. And it's like we're indulging, we're just staying there in that emotion. Interesting what we do with ourselves. So another possibility is that we resist an emotion. So we start to feel, I'll use myself as an example, let's say irritation comes up, and then I'm like, no, I shouldn't feel that. And I just resist it and I push it away. So it's like I squeeze it, or I push it down, or I hide it, okay? Another one could be avoiding. Avoiding is like denying that you have it. It's a type of pushing down as well. But when we want to avoid, here's what we do when we want to avoid an emotion. It's like, in other words, usually it's something painful, right? Something uncomfortable. It's not always pain. It's just uncomfortable, or something we term as negative, or something we just don't like. So again, let's say it's irritation. I feel so irritated. I don't feel or anxiety. And so what we can do is we can reach for things externally to help soothe that emotion. Like we're avoiding it. We're not actually feeling it and understanding what's going on for us. We're saying, I'm going to avoid this, and I'm going to turn to something external to soothe or to avoid or to medicate or to buffer. We can turn to all kinds of stuff. We can turn to food. We can turn to movies, like just watching movies all day long could be, doesn't necessarily mean it is, but it could be a buffering away from other emotions that you don't want to feel. People turn to all kinds of stuff. That's why sometimes people drink a lot, or they take all different types of medication, and there's many things that we do to buffer, to get away and not deal with and not feel the emotion that we have. Now, am I saying that's bad? I'm not saying that's bad. I'm just saying let's be aware that when we do that, usually we're just feeling, and then we're avoiding, and we're doing something that will soothe it or comfort it in the moment, but it's not helping us have any long-term victory over it. It will return again and again and again. You've probably noticed that in your own life. There's certain things that you just, you feel a certain way, and then you can soothe it externally with some way. It's like you avoid it. You're able to push it back down and manage it. Okay, that's fine. Again, by saying this, I'm not saying that that's wrong. I'm just saying let's be aware of what we're doing. And we might make a conscious choice and say, that's just what I need right now. I'm not able to go into my thinking and figure out what's going on. I just need to soothe myself. I just need to escape to a movie right now. Okay, no problem. Okay. But if you want and you want to grow from it, then also promise yourself and say to God, but I want to find out what's going on here, because I don't really want to live with this continual fruit of this very uncomfortable, very painful, very gnawing emotion the rest of my life. Of course, we all have the choice. You can, I like to say this, you can keep it or you don't have to keep it. I just want to give all of us the tools that we can be aware of what is going on. Again, this is a no judgment zone, right? It's not a judgment of that we buffer or we avoid or we resist. This, maybe that was survival for you. Maybe that's the way you've gotten. It is actually. It's how you got to where you are. And some people have gone through some horrible stuff, and thank God, that you learned a survival mechanism and you learned a way to manage that emotion so that it just didn't unravel you completely. Great that you did that. It's I applaud you. I applaud myself. Let's congratulate ourselves that we are here and where we are in the moment. But then once we get more knowledge, once we get more understanding, then we can make a choice to say, do I just want to stay in this, in managing it? Or do I actually want to find out what's going on deeper so that I can grow in this area? I think any of us that have gone through that, and we then experience the peace and the abundance that comes from shifting our thinking and our beliefs, and, something is removed that has been it's been a sore point all along, but we've just been avoiding or medicating it in some way. And then it's gone. And then we feel residential peace and abundance and flow in that area. Oh, that truly is heaven. That's heaven. But it does take saying, okay, I'm going to allow myself to feel. I'm going to look at what's going on. And sometimes it takes a little bit of time and some prayer to find it out. I just gave you this example of one of the things in my life. It's like a continuation of the not enough theme. And I found that I'm finding a lot of scarcity thinking in my life as I dig in. And again, I'm going to do another session just on that so that we can all, because I think that's something probably we all have, and we have to find out why it's scarce, why it's scarce and coming into abundance. So anyways, so processing emotion, we can either resist, react, avoid, or allow. Allow. Wow. Now we again have to learn the skill of allowing. And allowing, here's the key. We have to allow ourselves. It's what does it mean to allow the emotion? It means that if I'm feeling frustration, I did a feeling download just this morning to give you an example of different feelings I've felt by the way, there's a feeling download we can do. And this is one of the ways that we can be more aware of what we're feeling. So I just wrote down quickly, I have 7 on my list. So I just kind of thought about over the last weekend and what were the top feelings that I had that surfaced. Why? Just so I can be aware. This is part of allowing. It's just looking. Looking, not getting myself in trouble because I had a feeling, not avoiding continually, not just resisting it, but saying, let me look, let me feel let me actually check in with myself, check in with my emotions, and find out what I'm feeling. So I wrote these down. These are both good, I suppose you'd say negative and positive, or, emotions. So one of the things I felt a lot is gratefulness. Even in the midst of all of this, I've had a lot of emotions of gratefulness, even though we're stuck in our houses. Although that's probably not good terminology, because when I say I'm stuck in my house, I don't get the better feeling. Okay, I have the privilege of being safe in my house right now. Gives me a lot more better feeling than stuck. I'm stuck. I can choose to think that, but if I want to choose to have a little bit better feeling in the midst of the circumstance I can't change, I'm going to change my thinking a bit, just adjust my thinking so that, because if I dwell on I'm stuck, oh, I'm safe in my house, and thank God I have a safe house in the middle of a situation that's, horrible around the world, and I'm safe, and in my house, and my people are safe, in the castle and in their homes, then I have more of a feeling of peace and settledness. Anyways, I felt gratefulness. I've also felt irritation. Things happen, I feel irritation. Then I have to also remind myself it's not the circumstance causing me the irritation. It's my thinking about it that causes irritation. And then, by the way, we can ask ourselves after that, we can say, how do I want to feel? Like, what would feeling would serve me? Does this feeling serve me? Like, is irritation appropriate in this moment? And sometimes you say, yeah, it is actually irritating. But at least I'm aware, right? Or I said, man, I really don't want to feel this level of irritation. So I would like to actually feel this emotion, whatever that might be. And I choose it because that will serve me better and drive my action better when I'm having this emotion. So therefore, then I'm looking at my thoughts. Okay. No, I felt frustration. I felt peaceful. I felt really peaceful when I was on the rooftop on Easter morning and just enjoying and drinking my coffee and studying and writing in my journal and all kinds of stuff. Very peaceful. Content too. Amazing to feel content in the midst of what's going on. But I've also felt pressure, felt the emotion of pressure very much. And I also felt drained. So, but just me writing it down, I can put it here in my journal. And it's like I've allowed myself. I'm not telling myself I shouldn't feel that. I'm not getting angry with myself because I had a feeling. I'm not telling myself I should be more mature and not feel that. I'm saying the first step is just awareness and allowing. And a feeling download is a great way to do it, because anytime that we can get these things like out of our heart, like out of us and onto the paper, and we can look at it. So now it's like, oh, I can be the watcher, I can be the observer, and I can observe these feelings. It helps us. It's just bringing a little bit of distance so that we can do more processing. So then I can, like I said, I can decide, is this, when I feel frustrated, when I assign that this happens, and this happens, I feel frustrated. Okay, I remind myself, I'm not feeling frustrated directly because of the circumstance. I'm feeling frustrated because of what I'm thinking about the circumstance. So is this feeling, is this emotion serving me in the best way? How would I like to feel in this situation? Okay, that's allowing emotion. That's allowing emotion. I have to give you an example of just awareness. Awareness. That's our topic. Today is just awareness. Naming emotions. So the other day, and okay, I'm not proud of this, okay, but I'm being vulnerable and open to give you examples from myself. So I'm not proud of my feeling, but that's okay. Like, I'm not going to also get angry at myself. All right. So I forgot what day it was, but sometime last week, I guess it was. Time seems to be kind of different, right? Because it's hard to remember everything. But anyways, Juvie and I went to SNR, and we were going to try to get a washing machine for the property, for the castle. And we were waiting in line and doing what we're supposed to do and social distancing, and have our masks and do all that. And they kept making the announcement in Visayan that if you only have one card, you can only have one person enter. Well, I only had my card with me. So I was like, and Juvie was telling me, she's telling me the whole time, oh, they just said you can only get in one person with one card. So now there's two of us and there's only one card. So I was like, let's just try, because I'll just tell them I need, like, you need to pick it out, but I'm the one that's going to pay for it. So like, we have to have two people. So that's fine. I mean, no problem trying. But now again, remember, I'm not proud of my reaction. I'm just telling you. We got up to the front and we washed our hands, and and then they asked for the card, and we only have one card, and the guy's like, sorry, only one of you. And I try to explain, and he's like, sorry, he's firm, and he should have been. It's the rule. And they said it to us over and over. And do you know what I felt in that moment? I felt angry. I felt angry. Like this anger came up in me, like not like explosive anger, not anything like that, but just this like anger inside, like what? And then I had to tell my logical brain, had to tell my emotional self, they told you this the whole time. Somebody's laughing at me. They're sending laughing emoticons. Yeah, it's actually kind of laughable, but I think it's relatable, right? It's relatable. You might not have that exact emotion, but you could relate this to something else. And so even my logical brain is telling me, of course, but something on the inside of me still felt angry. So what was good is Juvie had already called somebody at the castle. I can't remember somebody, but I think it was Raymond, and had said, please bring another SNR card. And so, yes, Meredith, I got angry. You don't know that I get angry? Yes. And so thankfully, right as I'd only waited just a few minutes, and then Raymond had walked up and handed me the card, and I was able to go in because we had 2 cards. So great. As it should have been. SNR did exactly what they should have done, and the guy should have stuck exactly with the rules. Of course. Hello. And like when I look back on it, of course. But in that moment, I felt the anger. So what sometimes happens is, and interesting, I was just praying with somebody, doing prayer coaching with them, and they have an interesting story about a pomegranate. I like the pomegranate story. And they said, man, we had just cleaned our house, and I went in, and then I got a pomegranate, and I cut the pomegranate, and then the juice went everywhere. It went everywhere on my, in the kitchen. I think it got on the clothes. And I felt so angry that the juice went everywhere. And then, immediately following being angry that the juice went everywhere, then this person said, I got angry at myself for getting angry. And apparently, this is something we're working through, that's a common response that this person has. So she would feel an emotion, and then shortly after, she gets angry at herself for feeling the emotion, knowing that she shouldn't feel it. But none of it serves her because she's just stuck in this loop of feeling angry or feeling whatever. And then in that case, then another secondary emotion comes, angry at self or judging self, or we could say like resisting or avoiding. And it just keeps it looping. I mean, pretty soon it subsides, right? The emotion subsides, but we're just dealing with it's the fruit of something that's deeper going on. And again, just take note in your life, there's certain things that come up over and over again. You can keep it like that if you want, but if you want to go a bit deeper, this series is going to help you go deeper and get more freedom and peace and reprogram in there so that you have more empowerment in those situations. So thankfully for myself, like in that case, I didn't get angry with myself for getting angry. That I could have been like, hey, why would you do that? Don't you know you should, you're the leader of an organization and I could tell myself that, which is all true. And thankfully hopefully I didn't show that anger to anybody. I just felt it on the inside. If I'd shown it, then I'd probably have to go apologize too, but I don't think I showed it as far as, maybe my face was just like, But here's what I did do. And this I think is important, is afterwards, after the scenario, because sometimes we can't always do it in the scenario, but afterwards we can debrief ourselves. And I did this. So I went back and said, what was I thinking that caused me to be angry in that moment? Instead of being mad at myself, I looked without judgment, without being harsh on myself, because when we're harsh or we fear judgment or we fear punishment, even, interesting, like sometimes we don't even go to God with our emotions because we're afraid he's gonna judge us for what we're feeling. He's gonna punish us for what we're feeling. No, he actually wants to help us, but we have to start with this is what I'm feeling. This is the emotion I'm having. I don't necessarily want to keep it, but this is what's there. That's the first place of victory. So afterwards, I debriefed myself and, found out what was I thinking, and was able to adjust it so that hopefully when I'm in another similar situation, my thinking is now changed, and therefore my reactions and my feelings will be different. And if it's not completely different, then I just keep working on it step by step. Okay. I feel like it's a very light example. Like I said, it wasn't like extreme anger or anything like that. I'm just talking about like a little emotion of like just a little prick of like, eh. And by the time I got into SNR and all that, it all subsided. But I didn't just leave it like that. See, that's the point. I didn't just leave it and say, okay. I actually took time and I looked at it and I found out what was going on deeper, and I was able to grow from that. Okay. So I hope that you can do some of this. And all I want you to do today is start to be more aware of your emotions and be aware of your coping mechanisms that you have, especially for the negative emotions that come up. Coping mechanisms are not bad. Let me reiterate that. It got you to where you are right now. But if you want to go beyond this loop that you're in and this cycle of feeling these emotions again and again and again, like life is going to keep presenting you circumstances that are going to trigger that emotion. For sure. For sure. So why not take the time to look at it and grow from it? Okay. So first step is awareness. Second step is processing it. If we don't process our emotion, let me see what time it is. Okay. 11:35. So I'm going to start closing up here, and we will continue. There's a lot more I have to share with you. But I want you to realize this, is that when we stuff emotion, when we react to it, when we just medicate it, so to speak, or we buffer, I don't mean medication like actual medication. I mean, it can be medication, but I'm saying we do other things that actually just, like it's actions or things that we do that soothe it and medicate it in the moment. Then what happens is, what we can look at it is, it's like we get emotions that are built up inside of us because they're unprocessed. So think about it. You have this emotion and you just push it down. So it's there. And then the next time you have an emotion and you push it down, so then it builds again. And then it comes up again later on, a few weeks later, and then you push it back down. So you can just see it's like it just keeps layering. And we have things in our life that we've layered our whole life. It just keeps layering, right? So think of it like that. It's built up, it's stored, or it's stuck. Really want to explain this to you in another session, is that especially as in our childhood, in our young years, things that we experience or that we perceive, it's like that emotion could be, it's like it's stuck on the inside. It was never fully processed. And we just need to go there, find out what's there, like release it, process it, integrate it into our system, see God's truth come in. It's amazing. Another term that I like to use is a trapped emotion. We have trapped emotions, or we have stored emotions. Okay, we can even store emotions. And I'm actually learning a lot more about this recently. I've known it for a while, and I've done some prayer ministry around it, but how we even store emotion in our physical body. And I've taught it a little bit, but I'm delving into even more of it, because like we're very clear that, or we're very easy for us to know that when let's say we're stressed, often we feel it in our necks and our back. So it's like, oh, I'm so stressed, and then we immediately relate it to our physical body. So stress and physical body, we're already very aware of that. But how about all the other emotions, everything else that we've encountered in life, and especially things that we've just stored and we've not processed, like it's not been released or processed in some healthy way. Bottled emotions, very good. Yeah, bottled emotions. Okay, but it's that we're storing so much all through our life, and we're storing it in our emotional life, but we're even storing it in our physical. And some of the teachers that I listen to, it's very interesting because they say that all physical disease, or most physical disease, let's just say that most, the precursor of that is dis-ease, D-I-S dash ease, E-A-S-E, dis-ease in the emotional being, in the thought process. So there's a place of like agitation, resistance. It's not in flow. Something is stuck, and internally we are in dis-ease, which then eventually leads to disease in the physical body. Wow. Yes. And if you look at, the scripture, and even one of our foundations for freedom prayer is that the kingdom of God is righteousness, peace, and joy. Righteousness, peace, and joy. And those of you that have heard me teach, you know that God spoke to me so many years ago, and he said the evidence of our salvation is righteousness, the evidence of our freedom is peace, and the evidence of the infilling of the Holy Spirit is joy. right? So the evidence of our salvation is righteousness. That is in our identity. We as a child of God are righteous. And it's, as we've discussed this so many times already, it's because of what Jesus did. So we are in him and our righteousness is in him. That is our identity. But around our spirit man and our identity, we have our, all these layers of our being. And this is the stuff that we're working on. This is the renewing of the mind. This is the stuff where the good and the bad, the ugly, the beautiful, all of that is there. But all of that is still very important to our being, like our soul realm, our emotional realm, because it's producing, as we've talked about, in our life. Right? So that, but a big indicator that we are not yet releasing the freedom that Christ has paid for is that it's an area we don't have peace yet. Right? We have something else besides peace. We have pain, we have discomfort, we have ongoing frustration, irritation, we're continually triggered in a certain area. Well, it's just another way of saying there's freedom for us. It's already in us. It's just that there's belief systems, there's programming, there's things that we've stored for a long time, and it's just never been released. Because we know that when it's released, then we feel peace. When we go back to, when we think of that memory, when we think of that relationship, when we think of a situation, that we can find that internal peace. Okay. So first step is to become aware. Okay. Give ourselves permission just to look and be aware. Stop for a moment, or stop later after. Like you might feel an emotion and then you can't really take the time at that time, but later in your private time and in your journaling time, or maybe with your team, if you're like somehow you say, I want to process this. I want to first acknowledge this is how I felt, but I don't necessarily want to stay here. I'm not going to judge myself. I'm not angry. I'm just being aware. Okay. And you're not indulging, because I really want to point, indulgence is, this is how I feel. And it's like, oh, I'm just going to keep this feeling. And I'm not interested in changing it, but I'm just going to stay in this negative feeling, and I hope everybody feels bad for me and gives me attention. No, that's indulging, and that's not growth. That's not powerful growth, okay? A tool you can use, as I showed you, is a feeling download. So just do a download of what you're feeling. Start to acknowledge yourself. Start to validate. This is what I feel. This is what's happening for me. Get it out so you can look at it. You can see it. Be a watcher, be an observer of your emotions today and this week. And develop this as a life skill. And observe without judgment and without anger. Okay? Now, some of the stuff you feel, then you're not happy about. You're really not. But whenever you release judgment, it never helps you. It's like it pushes you further in the pit of that emotion. That's why judgment, and I keep saying this because there's going to be quite a bit in the series, but I'll do specific teaching on what judgment does in our life. And but the Bible says when you judge, it actually comes back to you like multiplied. So even when you judge others or you judge yourself, you're actually attracting that in your life more. And it's not taking you to freedom. It's actually putting you further into bondage. Okay. So today, focus on awareness and naming what you feel. Okay, that's why I sent you two schematics, two pictures of emotions that you should have received. Let me pull mine up. And I really like those because they, of course, it's gone when I need it. Oh, by the way, this is a term I was going to tell you. Okay, I didn't fall, but my phone fell. Icon, media team, maybe we could get a little tripod. Oops, sorry. Okay, I've got to reset myself. Okay, there. It's like, you want to see where my phone is? It's in there. See all my pens? So I've stuck my phone in my pens. I really need like a little tripod. Okay. Anyway, I sent you the chart of emoticons. We love emoticons now, right? When we communicate, and it's actually a really great tool, because before we had all the emoticons, sometimes you'd send a text And if you were joking and someone misinterpreted your joke, then they might get hurt. But now we can send a joke and then we can put a laughy emoticon. It actually helps us express how we're, like, the intent of our writing. So I like that. But the reason I gave you the list, both that and then the chart, the wheel that has all the emotions, you can see there's basic, like some basic emotions, and then those basic emotions then lead out into other emotions. And the main thing with that is to look and to start to, like, be aware and assess and name what you are feeling. Because putting a name on it, determining what it is, it's like a part of validating, allowing, and being aware. So when we can look through a list, that's better. I wish maybe we have a Visayan one for those of you that would be easier, because, like, those are some big English words. So if you don't speak English, then, so I mean, if of course you speak English, what I mean is that's not your first language, then it's not so healing, right? If you can put your own words that name it, and, like, the more accurate, it helps you validate it. Like, we do that also in freedom prayer when we're praying with somebody and they can actually say, this is what I feel. Oh, and you kind of, like, finally able to, like, clarify the feeling. And sometimes that's all that's needed just to, like, start to shift what's going on, is just to name it. Other times that's not enough and we got to keep going, but just acknowledging and saying, this is how I feel, and then even releasing it, that could be enough. That could be it. And then you feel so much better, and you've done something. You've processed that emotion. Okay, Meredith said, okay, let me answer your question. Why? Oh, Meredith says, in the emoticons about feelings, why is repentant part of the negative emotions? I don't know. You could just cross that out, because I just found something and I didn't look at every emotion. So I'm sorry if it's not exactly, like, just take it as the general idea. And if something doesn't make sense in there, and I can't pull it up because it's on my phone right now, then just cross that part off. Don't be, by me sending that to you, I'm not saying that this is exact science. I'm just saying it's just helping you put names on something, because obviously repentant is not a negative emotion. That's positive. So the chart is wrong. We'll correct it. We'll make our own chart. I just didn't have time. Okay, but good question. And thank you for saying that and clarifying that. So, okay, so all we're going to do is focus on awareness, naming, and validating. And it was interesting. I asked Juvie if I could use this example, because Juvie, Isa, and Shriek and I were just talking through things, and as leaders, and Juvie was saying one of the feelings that she was feeling was grief. And oh gosh, my phone is moving again. So Juvie, you can clarify this further, but it was interesting because we were just talking. We weren't talking about this teaching or anything, really, I don't think. But she was saying, oh, she feels grief. And two of the things that she said she felt grief around was that she can't just be as loud as she normally is. And that's one of the things we love about Juvie, her humor, her exuberant personality, and her loudness, right? Like, that's such a wonderful thing about Juvie. But she was acknowledging and noticing about herself that because she has to always be quiet and help keep everyone else quiet there, which thank you for doing that. And it's necessary right now. It's really good. Thank you for doing that and keeping each other accountable. Life won't always be like that, but just for this season, we have to, be quieter. So thank you at the castle. And, but she said she felt grief around it because it's like a loss right now. It's like, it's a liberty that we can't express at the moment. Thankfully, it'll change. And then she said the other thing that she felt grief about was, what was the other thing? Oh, just not being able to go outside. Like, even though you have the rooftop, she just really misses being just able to go outside. I can really relate to that because I don't even have a rooftop here, guys. Like, not at my house. So that's why I think I just stayed on the rooftop on Sunday. Because, when I'm here, I'm inside. Now, sometimes I take a little walk around the block, but with my mask on and going to the drugstore if I need to, and, but it really, like that's good self-awareness. I feel grief. I feel loss. I feel limitation right now. And that's great, right? So we say to ourselves, so like an idea for her or for any of you feeling those sorts of things, just acknowledge yourself. And you can even just say, wow, yeah, it is a grieving time. It's a time of loss right now that we don't have our normal liberties. And sometimes it's enough just to acknowledge yourself and like give yourself some self-care in that way, just emotional self-care by just acknowledging your emotion. It's amazing because sometimes that's just all that's needed. Now, other times that's the starting point. And then we might say, but I want to acknowledge that I have grief, and I want to acknowledge that I feel loss right now because it's appropriate. It's a situation that, it is loss. It is grief. It's a season of limitation and less than. But if Juvie could say to herself, or, I'm just using this as an example, do I want to keep that? And is it okay for me? Maybe it's not that painful for her. Maybe it's just an acknowledgement. But if it was painful, what I would advise her, and we did not have this further conversation, I'm just doing it as an example, and she gave me permission. What she could say, let's say it's quite uncomfortable and it's not serving her. And because of that grief, the action or inaction is not something she actually really wants to, she's looking at it and say, oh, this causes me to do this, this, and this. And then she say, I actually would like to not just live in that grief and that loss. Well, then she can start to look deeper and say, well, then what am I thinking? What am I thinking that's causing this grief? And is there something a little bit better that I could just adjust my thinking so that I don't feel the same level of grief, or I feel something different? Maybe, like I want to, what a good question I ask myself is, how would I like to feel in this situation? What would serve me better? What feeling would serve me better in the scenario? So we're not saying, oh, you should just feel happy and joyous and, but maybe you just want to feel, instead of grief, you want to feel, trying to think of something off the top of my head, like what would feel better than grief? And this is only if grief is causing like negative action or inaction that's leading to results that you don't want. So you can dig in and say, first of all, what would I like to feel? So I guess that's individual for each person in a scenario. And then the other thing we can ask ourselves is this tapping on something like a deeper grief, a built up grief? And I'm not going to teach on that now. This is going to be for more sessions later, actual tools, what to do. But this is all the way of acknowledging, allowing, validating ourselves, and then moving through a healthy process of growing our programming, finding out if there's anything that's scarce, disempowering, a lie that's in there. And once we find that, then inviting truth in, inviting empowerment in, meeting Christ, meeting the Holy Spirit, bringing his word into the deep place of our belief, where it becomes our belief, our truth, and then it's producing those emotions. So I hope this has helped. The main thing I want you to know today is awareness. Just be aware. Use the chart, use the circle, be aware of yourself. I would love everybody to do some thought downloads. Feeling downloads. Like, what are you feeling? Just write it down. Maybe in your team time, you can discuss some of this. And so, again, there's things we're going to do with the emotion, but the first step is awareness and allowing. So is there anybody have any questions? I'll just end for today and see if any questions come up on my chat here. Isa, if you could send me any questions from the group there. Or comments or things, like we always say, like something that stood out to you that really means something. Oh, I started to read this, I think, and I didn't get there twice. A term that we have now is emotional intelligence. Okay, and the definition of this, having emotional intelligence, we're acquainted with intelligence in terms of logic and understanding, but there's another intelligence that's named, by the world and by psychologists and psychiatrists or whoever does, but emotional intelligence. And it means the capability of individuals to recognize their own emotion and those of others, to discern between different feelings and label them appropriately. Use emotional information to guide thinking and behavior, or really what we're teaching is that the thinking is behind or below, or the the producer of the feeling, and then the feeling then drives our behaviors. Okay, so information that guides our thinking and our behavior, because we can use it all to assess ourselves and even others, and manage or adjust emotions to adapt to environments or achieve one's goal. So that's the definition of emotional intelligence. So by learning this, we are all learning more skills in emotional intelligence. Okay, how to know what we're feeling, how to recognize other people's feelings, validating feelings, knowing then what to do with them once we are aware and we validate. We don't want to just sit in a lot of these emotions. We don't, it's not going to serve us to keep some of these things or to have it continue to come up over and over in our life where it's like it's beating us, it's beating us up and beating us into the ground. So we're going to learn those skills of awareness and then what to do. Okay. Yeah, good. So Grace says, yeah, it's really good to be aware of your emotions and feelings because it's part of knowing yourself. True. Yeah. So we're building connection with ourselves by knowing ourselves, not denying ourselves, not resisting, not wanting to look because we're afraid, So it is. You're totally right. You're totally right. I'll just wait a little bit as if there's any questions or comments. I'll just respond as they come through on my phone here. Anything? Oh, I think just something that comes up for me is that, like maybe a question out there, or could be, what is the difference between male and female in emotions? And because often women are looked at as being more emotional than men. Now, again, that's not like a blanket characteristic, but overall, there is two sides of the brain. One is more of a thinking, logical side. One side is more like on the emotional. But what I want to say is that and especially in praying and counseling people, it's really all the same. Like everybody, male or female, everybody's just individual. Everybody just has different ways that they process. And men are just as emotional as women. It just might not be as much on the surface. They might not be as in touch with their emotions because that's looked at as more feminine to be in touch with emotion. But a powerful man that has emotional intelligence is quite incredible. And the truth is whether it's like you're easily in touch or you're not in touch with emotion based on what you've been taught through your life about these things. I personally don't think it has a whole lot to do with your gender. It just has to do with your programming. It has to do with it is the way you think naturally, of course. I mean, I as a female, I actually have quite an analytical mind. That's why I went into engineering and math, and all of that was where my intelligence went. But all of us, I just want to say all of us, getting more aware of ourselves, aware of our emotions, more in touch with what's going on, is a very powerful and important skill. So just because you're in touch with your emotions doesn't mean you're emotional. Like, it doesn't mean you're going to start to cry all the time and, be emotional.